Hello, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for August 13th, 2025. And on today's episode, we are going to be having an honest conversation about Jalen Hurts and where he ranks amongst the quarterbacks in the NFL. I also do want to talk about Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers and, what's going on with that football team this upcoming season. And I also want to talk about John Gruden potentially returning to coach in the SEC. So today I got to get a little thumbs up here because I actually remembered all the topics today when I was talking about all the topics. So improved from yesterday. So that is always something that I like to put like a feather in the cap for. Before we get into the episode, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. It's been awesome doing content for you guys, and the channel it's really doing good so far. Very happy with the first week numbers, and we're just going to continue to grow here, and that's the main goal. So I really do appreciate all the support and love that you guys have shown towards the content. And please, before we get into the episode, make sure to subscribe to the other shows here on Kretschman Media. The Mic Drop with Benjamin Garcia, you can go check that out. And the Stadium Pulse with Tegan Randolph, you can go check that out. Both excellent shows. And I'm really happy to have those guys a part of Kretschman Media. So let's get into our main topic. Can we be honest about Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts is a useful quarterback. He does some things very well for the Philadelphia Eagles. He is a good fit in the Philadelphia Eagles system, even though I would say that the reason why he's such a good fit is because they made it a point to build that system around him. But he is not one of the very best quarterbacks in the game. Here's what I don't understand. If people have to tell me how good a player is, it's probably because the player isn't as good as what somebody is telling me that he actually is. Jalen Hurts does some things well for the Eagles offense. He doesn't turn the ball over. He keeps the sticks moving with his legs. He's a threat from that perspective. But when you look at what he does to contribute to winning for that football team, it's not on the same level as the elite guys in the NFL. When you talk about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and then other quarterbacks in the tier 2, when you talk about guys like Stafford, Herbert, Prescott, guys like that, they contribute to winning much more than Jalen Hurts does. If Jalen Hurts played for any other team in the playoffs and he had the type of playoff performances that he had against the Rams and he had against the Packers, they wouldn't have won those games. The reason why the Eagles got to the Super Bowl, especially in those first 2 games of the playoffs, is because they had a fantastic roster around Jalen Hurts. And he took advantage of it. And he did do what he had to do to get the Eagles that Super Bowl victory. And he should be commended for that. But while we should give him credit for the Super Bowl victory, it's also fair to say that he's not one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that you could say he's in that 5 to 8 range, but I think you lose that argument. To me, he's closer to 10, way closer to 10 than he is to 5, right? Like me personally, I have him ranked outside of my top 10 because I just think that there are 10 better quarterbacks in the NFL than Jalen Hurts. But while I'm saying that, he does do some things well for the Eagles. And I just think that, I see all this stuff all the time where they're like, well, look at what Peyton Manning's saying about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts attended the Manning Passing Academy. He has a relationship with Peyton Manning. Do you think Peyton Manning is going to go on PFF or one of these other stations that he goes on to talk about football and criticize Jalen Hurts? No, he has a personal relationship with the guy. Of course he's going to say a lot of good things about him. Of course Tom Brady's going to say good things about him on the broadcast because Tom Brady literally cannot criticize players while he's on the broadcast. I'm pretty sure that's baked into his contract because he is a part owner of the Raiders that he can't do that. I think you're getting honest conversations about him from guys like Chase Daniel, right? Like I'm not even a big Chase Daniel fan, but he is a lot. I agree with Chase Daniel more than I agree with some of the other people that talk about Jalen Hurts. He's a fine quarterback. Obviously, you can win a Super Bowl with him. Obviously, you can have a productive offense with him. But when you talk about him and what he contributes to winning, he is not the driving force of that football team. The driving force of that football team was, especially last year, the defense, because the defense kept them in a lot of those games. Especially, the Super Bowl. Look, that Super Bowl performance from that defense was one of the best defensive performances that we've ever seen. Like, you're talking about Denver Broncos 2016 good, maybe even better than that. That's how good that defensive performance was. And Jalen Hurts benefited from it. Jalen Hurts is not in a situation where he has to stress about putting the ball in harm's way. Because here's the thing, right? When people compare Jalen Hurts to Justin Herbert, understand this. There is a difference between a quarterback having to go win the game. When you talk about quarterbacks doing their job, right? Every quarterback's job is different. When you talk about a guy like Justin Herbert, he has to throw that seam ball on 3rd and 10, because if he doesn't complete that pass, that might be 6 points on the other end. That's the difference when you talk about Jalen Hurts, where it's like, hey, on that 3rd and 10, I could just check the ball down to Saquon Barkley, and he might go get me 8 yards, and I can go tush push for the 4th down and convert a first down that way. It's not the same when you talk about quarterbacks doing their job. Every quarterback's job is different. Every quarterback has different responsibilities. And some quarterbacks' responsibilities are more difficult than other quarterbacks' responsibilities. When you look at guys like Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy with the 49ers, especially the past few years, they were not asked to go out there and win their teams the games. They were asked, do not put us in bad situations. And they didn't put their teams in bad situations. But I would at least say with Brock Purdy, I think he did even more than just go out there and not lose the game. I think he contributed to winning much more than Jalen Hurts contributed to winning when you talk about what Jalen Hurts did this past season. Saquon Barkley had an all-time great season. All-time great season. And everybody knows that as well. Everybody can agree with that. When you have the type of running game that the Eagles have, and understand this, their running game transcends who runs the football. Obviously, when you have a guy as elite as Saquon Barkley, it's going to be even better than what you had with Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift, but they still had productive running games with those running backs. But that's the thing. Like, again, talk about the offensive line. I personally think that that's the driving force of this offense, because you see the time in the pocket that Jalen Hurts has. He's able to hold the ball for over 3 seconds on average because he has that offensive line who protects for him, and because he has receivers that can get open. Like, a lot of other quarterbacks in the NFL don't have that. So when we talk about Jalen Hurts winning a Super Bowl, here's my question, right? Because that's the only reason why people have him in their top 5. So if you're going to say that Jalen Hurts is better than Justin Herbert because he has a Super Bowl, let me ask you this question. Is it easier to win when you have a better team around you? Yes or no? Just answer the question, yes or no. Okay, let me ask this next question. Who has a better team around them? Jalen Hurts or Justin Herbert? Answer that question. It's Jalen Hurts, by the way. So why does Jalen Hurts get credit for doing something that is easier to do than another quarterback? Winning is easier for Jalen Hurts than Justin Herbert because he has a much better team around him. Like, wins are not a quarterback stat. They're just not, because it's so skewed. Because you could have a quarterback as talented as Justin Herbert, who plays for the Los Angeles Chargers, who, by the way, have been a mess for the past 20 plus years. And they've had other great quarterbacks with their franchise. They've had Drew Brees. They've had Philip Rivers, and they haven't been able to get over the top. And they're not getting over the top right now with Justin Herbert. And I don't believe that's a Justin Herbert thing. But when you rank the two quarterbacks, it's very clear who if you were to just draft quarterbacks, right? If you were to build a team, I would say probably 25 to 28 of the general managers would take Justin Herbert over Jalen Hurts. And that's just a fact. And that's why when these executives come out and rank the quarterbacks, Justin Herbert is always over Jalen Hurts because he's just a better quarterback. So let's move on to the next topic. But before we move on to the next topic, I have to remind you guys, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And also, please make sure to go check out the mic drop and make sure to go check out the stadium pulse on Kretschman Media. I would greatly appreciate that. So let's get into the next topic. The next topic I want to talk about is Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. It's hard to evaluate Jordan Love and really properly rank Jordan Love because I do think that his receivers just aren't good. I think they're going to be better this year than they were last year, but I still don't look at this receiving core and say that it's a very impressive unit. I think Matthew Golden's going to be a very good player for this team. Jaden Reed, I really like him, but outside of that, like I think their receiver core is quite frankly overrated. But this is, to me, this is the year where we really learn about Jordan Love. What is he? What is Jordan Love? Is Jordan Love one of these top 10 quarterbacks? Is he a bona fide top 10 quarterback? Or are we going to see what we saw from last year where he was inconsistent? And that's really what I've seen from Jordan Love so far ever since he's become the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers is I just think he's been inconsistent. I think that there's things that you look at and you say, all right, you know, you're going into year 6 here. You probably shouldn't be making those type of mistakes. I understand he's in a third year as a starter, but when you talk about mechanics, it doesn't matter how long you've been the starter. I mean, I don't love the fact that he throws off his back foot. He does not have the arm talent. One, he doesn't have the arm talent to do that type of stuff. Very, very few quarterbacks do. Two, it's also just not the way you throw the football. It's not the way you're taught to throw the football. But when I look at the Packers and this team overall, I think that Matt LaFleur does a very good job building plays for this offense and sequencing plays and dialing up plays to put his quarterback in the best position to succeed. It's about execution at the end of the day. And Jordan Love has had times where he's executed at a very high level. Jordan Love has also had times where he has not executed at a very high level. I want to see Jordan Love become a more consistent quarterback, play in and play out. I want Jordan Love to make the layups, throw the quick the quick passes, and make sure that he's just staying on schedule with the offense and not putting his offense in bad positions, which he does have the tendency to do so because of the fact that he does have arm arrogance, because of the fact that he has legit arm talent. But I would just like to see him get to the point where he says, just like Mahomes did early in his career, I'm very talented, I can make the throws, but at the same time, I need to make sure that I'm staying on schedule. And if the big play is not there, I'm not going to force the big play. I'm going to check the ball down. I'm going to make all my reads. If nothing's there, check the ball down. Live to fight another day. That's where I would say Jordan Love can make that next step in his game. And I think that's where you're going to see consistency with Jordan Love, because I do think that, like, when you see these high-level performances from Jordan Love, it's because of the fact that those chances that he takes, he's cashing in on a lot of those opportunities, compared to, you know, some of the games where it's like, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't have thrown that pass there. Maybe that's not a good decision. But, you know, overall with the Packers last year, it was a very successful season for them from the standpoint of, like, yeah, they didn't win a playoff game last year, but I think they did take a step in the right direction. But you also say, like, 1-5 against your own division. You don't love seeing that. Granted, I think they went, like, I think they lost one game outside of their division, something crazy like that. So it's obvious that, you know, maybe they had a little trouble playing in their division because they played in a really good division last year. I mean, talk about a team that won 15 games in the Lions and a team that won 14 in the Vikings. I mean, that's a very difficult division to deal with, right? But I mean, like, when you look at the Packers, what do I expect from them this season? I just think it's difficult to predict, because I don't know where Jordan Love's going to go in his progression. Is he going to stay the same from last year? Because I didn't love what I saw from Jordan Love last year. And again, the inconsistency to me, it's just, I want to see him be more consistent. If he could be more consistent, you're talking about the Packers as being one of the better teams in the NFC, a team that can compete for their division, even though I think they play in a pretty difficult division, right? So that's what I'm looking at from the Green Bay Packers and saying, okay, that's probably their ceiling. What is their ceiling when you talk about this conference? I think you're looking at I think the Vikings are better than them. I think the Rams are better than them. I think the Eagles are better than them. And then I think there's like this next tier of NFC teams that they fit into. I think that they're in the tier with like the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, teams like that. Even the Lions, like I think the Lions are going to be more of a tier 2 team than a tier 1 team this year in the NFC. So that's where I think they fit in. And to me, like you kind of asked the question, like with Matt LaFleur, is he the guy there? Like I think he is the guy, to be honest with you. Like I think if the Packers move on from Matt LaFleur, that would be a very bad decision because Ben Garcia talked about it on the mic drop. He said that if you move on from your coach and your coach is the number one prize commodity, you probably made a mistake. And I don't think that Matt LaFleur has been there so long to the point where you say, okay, you've had it all and you haven't been able to get over the top. I actually think that Matt LaFleur has been able to get more out of the personnel that he's had than, you know, maybe you would expect, right? Like, I think that the 2023 season was a massive success for them. I mean, they won some big games that year. They obviously went to Dallas and had a tremendous performance in that playoff game. And then they gave the 49ers all they could handle. They almost made the NFC Championship that game that year. So that's where you kind of, you know, get to with Matt LaFleur, where it's just like, can he get over the hump? Me personally, I think that there's no question. And I just think that the Green Bay Packers should probably do a better job with, you know, gathering personnel, the right personnel for Matt LaFleur, you know, to get that franchise over the top, because I think moving on from him would be a massive mistake for that franchise. And this is one of the situations where I kind of look at it and say, you know, there's some situations where you say, okay, the quarterback and coach combination, who is it? Which one's more at fault here? And I think that if this doesn't end up the way they want it to end up, I personally look at Jordan Love more than I look at Matt LaFleur, because, you know, I do think Jordan Love is a good quarterback. I think he could be a very damn good quarterback, but you want to see him, you know, develop more, because there are things that, even though he is in year 6, that, yeah, he is a third-year starter, but there are things that you only get from being a starter. And that's where I think Jordan Love has to get to where, okay, you're in year 3. Let's start to get more comfortable. Let's start doing the things that you need to do to stay within the structure of this offense and to stay on schedule. And I mean, if he can do those things, and obviously, like I said earlier, the receiver core, it just has to be better. It has to be better. Way too many drops from that unit. So, you know, while I said Jordan Love has to be better, the receiver core has to be better as well. And if that's the case, you know, they have a chance here in the NFC this upcoming season. So let's move on to the next topic. But before we do, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure to subscribe to the other pages on the Kretschman Media Network, the Stadium Pulse and the Mic Drop. So you want to know what's crazy? We're actually, what are we? 3 weeks away from the NFL season, like tomorrow. So I think we're 22 days away from the NFL season, which is absolutely crazy. I think that there is a very good opening slate of games. I think that Dallas Philly game, week 1, that Thursday night game, I think that's going to be a fantastic game. I think that the Chargers Chiefs going to be a very interesting game. Those 2 games on the Thursday and the Friday night, it's going to be a lot of fun stuff that weekend. And then obviously you have week 1. So football is close to being back. And I welcome it. College football season, that's going to be back in the next 10 days. So, or 9 days? Is that 9 days? I think, yeah, because it's Wednesday. I think 10 days is right. But I may be mistaken there. But yeah, we're close. That's all I know is that we're close to football. So this next topic has me feeling really nicey. John Gruden was at Georgia, and he gave a speech to the Georgia Bulldogs, and he said, quote, "The only reason I really came here is I want to coach again. I'm being honest with you. I do not expletive either. I want to coach again. I die to coach in the SEC. I would love it. I would expletive love it." John Gruden should absolutely get a job in college football. He would be a fantastic hire for whatever program decided to hire him. Because when you look at college football, they're going more towards, hey, let's try and get some celebrity coaches to coach in college football. But John Gruden is more than just a celebrity coach. This guy is one of the best offensive minds that we've seen in the NFL over the past 25 years. He won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson as his quarterback. And he had some really good success with the Raiders, really rebuilding that organization. So can John Gruden go into a college football program and rebuild a program and attract recruits because of who John Gruden is? Absolutely. I mean, if you're a program that needs a spark and needs somebody to come in and really change things in your program, who else is there out there other than John Gruden? He's not going back to the NFL. It's very clear that the NFL wants nothing to do with John Gruden. And I kind of feel like this is a situation where it's don't go somewhere where you're tolerated, go somewhere where you're appreciated. And I feel like a lot of these college programs are embracing John Gruden. You're seeing a lot of programs bring John Gruden in to talk to their program. And that's where I look at that and I say, look, John Gruden has a lot of friends in the college ranks. These coaches know a lot of athletic directors. They know a lot of people, and they'll vouch for John Gruden. And look, we could talk about, all this stuff that happened with the emails. I get it. If you don't feel, if you feel a certain type of way about that, I understand. I'm not here to change your mind, but I'm just saying, whether you think it's right or not, a lot of people have gotten over it. And that's why I think ultimately he's gonna get a job coaching. I think SEC football. I mean, there's a lot of these programs that, John Gruden would be perfect for them. When you look at a program like Arkansas, who just spent big money to get John Calipari, I mean, imagine that. That's your coaching combination for your two biggest sports. Basketball, you have Calipari. Football, you have John Gruden. I mean, that's some real life that you're putting into that program, into your athletic programs just in general. And I mean, if you're a quarterback recruit and you've seen some of the stuff that John Gruden has done with your quarterbacks, and you see the John Gruden quarterback camps, why in the world would you not want to get coached by that guy? Right? Like, he's going to be able to get guys like that into his programs. I look at Auburn. That's a program that I think needs a little bit of a kick there. And would John Gruden be able to provide that kick? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. He's going to energize whatever program he decides to coach for, because he will coach for a program. John Gruden loves coaching. He is a coach by nature. And I think him being out of the game for so long, I think that's really been getting to him. And I think that John Gruden is a guy that I mean, you heard stories when he was in Green Bay and Tampa Bay, where he's going into these facilities at 3:00 in the morning and stealing plays from people. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. A lot of offensive coordinators do that. But do I think John Gruden can adjust to the college game? Absolutely. Because I think John Gruden lives, breathes football. That's what he does. And man, like, if I'm an athletic director and I'm at one of these programs to where, like, I might not be able to get the top of the line coaches. Like, I may not be able to recruit a Lane Kiffin to come coach for my program because he already coaches at a bigger program. Or I can't bring in a guy like Kurt Signetti, because a bigger program is probably going to want to get his services, right? Like, that's where I look at that and I say, hey, John Gruden's there. He might be a better coach than all these guys that are going to get attracted or that are going to, hire more in-demand coaches. And, I do think that there's programs like, let's just say, for example, things go left at Florida and Billy Napier is out of there. I don't think that they're going to go after John Gruden because I think, they might want to stay away from that. Like, that's just kind of the way I look at this. They may want to stay away from John Gruden. But like a program like Arkansas, yeah, why not? Like program like Vanderbilt or one of those programs, like I'm not saying Vanderbilt in particular, but some of those lower level ones like Kentucky, yeah, I would want to bring in John Gruden because he's going to make my program a better program. He's going to elevate my program. If Deion Sanders can go into Colorado and re-energize that program and turn that program into, not a national championship contending program, but a program that you look at and I feel like people think much different of the Colorado Buffaloes than they had before Deion Sanders. And I think whatever team brings in John Gruden, it's going to be the same thing where, they're going to bring him in and he's going to have the same type of impact. I think even a greater impact than a Deion Sanders would because of the fact that John Gruden as a coach, there's no doubt about it. He's a more qualified coach than Deion Sanders. I mean, he won a freaking Super Bowl, right? So I think he has the proper qualifications. And I just think whatever program wants to take a risk, because it is a risk bringing in John Gruden, right? Like I said earlier in the video, there are people that feel a certain type of way about John Gruden. But I think that, the audience in college football, I just think that they're much more embracing, or I don't think that's a word, but they will embrace John Gruden more than the NFL because of the fact that, like I said, you see all these college coaches embracing John Gruden. He wants to talk to those programs. They want him talking to those programs. And I think that ultimately that's going to lead to him getting a job in college football. It might not even be in the SEC, even though he wants to coach in the SEC. And I just think that environment, because I don't know if you guys have seen or been to any SEC games, especially like some of the top schools like Alabama, LSU, those programs. It is bonkers there. It is football heaven when you go to some of these SEC games and you see some of the stadiums. They seat 100,000 people. I mean, the environment is electric. Yeah, I can see why John Gruden would want to coach in the SEC. Makes a lot of sense. And I think that ultimately it's going to happen. So that's going to be it for the CEO Sports Show for August 13th, 2025. I appreciate you guys for coming out and supporting the content. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. Make sure to check out the other shows on the Kretschman Media Network, the Stadium Pulse, the Mic Drop. And you guys have a good Wednesday. We are almost there, right? Well, not almost. Since it's Wednesday morning, like here's the thing. Wednesday, what I really get hung up on Wednesday is that like Friday is 2 days away, but you still have 3 shifts to go before you get to the weekend. So it's like, I'm not even halfway through my week, but like I'm halfway through my week. That's kind of the situation that I get hung up on. So have a good day, guys, and I will see you guys in the next episode.